Picture this. Angel Reese, the WNBA's rebound leader and a two-time All-Star, abruptly sidelined by her own team in the middle of a 10-30 season already lost to the standings. The reason wasn't injuries or minutes management. It was her own words, printed and replayed until they turned into a storm. The Sky labeled her comments detrimental to the team, straight from their official memo, and the phrase landed like a gavel. She's still putting up 14.7 points and 12.6 rebounds a night, but the box score couldn't quiet the friction between her ambition and the franchise's free fall. That's why everyone started whispering about trades before the ink even dried on the memo. Insiders said teams were lurking, nothing imminent, but nobody denies the interest when a young star shakes the table. One line to the press lit the match, and the fallout traveled faster than any halftime adjustment. If you want to know how we got here, you start with the sentence that set the tone for the entire week. The spark came in what should have been a routine post-game scrum. Frustrated after yet another loss, Angel Reese spoke with a Chicago reporter and didn't sugarcoat a thing. When asked about the team's future, she gave the line that would dominate headlines by morning. "I'm not settling for the same shit we did this year." It read blunt and honest on the page, and it sounded even sharper when clipped for socials. The front office moved before lunchtime. By midday, Chicago pushed out a formal statement calling Reese's words detrimental to the team and emphasizing that safety, respect, and well-being are core values. The language mattered because it didn't frame this as a run-of-the-mill complaint about losing streaks. It framed it as a culture hit. That's how the story got bigger than a quote. Suddenly, it was about what kind of locker room the Sky wanted to be. Inside the building, players felt it. Reports said some veterans took the comments personally, and that Reese was surprised by how quickly the backlash echoed through the room. Moments like that don't stay private in a season like this. When the record is 10-30, frustration sits on the surface, and one hard truth can sound like an attack, even if the aim was accountability. 2 nights later, after a win over Connecticut, Reese stepped to the mics and owned the emotion. She told reporters she had apologized to teammates and promised, "I'm with y'all 100%. It was a rally the group move, the kind of tone reset a leader tries when wires have already crossed. But apologies don't erase headlines, and the ripples didn't stop just because the scoreboard finally tilted their way. Context made everything heavier. Reese isn't just a starter, she's the face of the future, already leading the entire league in rebounding and piling up double-doubles like it's a routine. When a cornerstone talent questions direction, even indirectly, management hears it as a challenge to the timeline. And then came the twist that made every camera pan to the bench. The discipline that followed wasn't simple, and it wasn't singular. 3 days before Chicago announced their own punishment, the league had already taken action. In the Connecticut game, Reese picked up her 8th technical of the season, the automatic trigger for a 1-game suspension under WNBA rules. The designation went on the ledger like clockwork. Reach that number and you sit the next one. No debate, no nuance, just the system. Here's where it turned unusual. The Sky didn't leave it at the league's automatic suspension. They layered on a team-imposed penalty. Reese would also sit the first half against Las Vegas. A half-game benching is rare across the league, and stacking it on top of the league's ban made the optics hard to miss. It read like Chicago wanted to make a point, and they wanted fans and players to see it. Head coach Tyler Marsh kept it tight in front of microphones. He called it an organizational decision, offered no detail on whether it came from coaches, the front office, or leadership feedback, and moved the conversation back to the night's opponent. When a coach goes that short, it usually means the decision came from higher up, or at least from a room bigger than a whiteboard session. Either way, the message was public and deliberate. Around the league, sources pointed out the norm. Teams typically handle this stuff inside closed doors. Fines happen. Tough meetings happen. Suspensions happen when the league mandates them. Doing both at once, and doing it in a way that guarantees national attention against the defending champs, sends a different sort of note. It said the organization thought the quote wasn't just spicy, it was a breach of what they want to represent. This wasn't Reese's first brush with a whistle or a lens. She plays with heat, and that shows up both in her rebounding numbers and in how often she challenges rulings. In July, cameras caught her shouting about missed calls during a Dallas timeout. Clips like that travel, and they build a story even when the scoreboard doesn't. The Sky had mostly kept things in-house. This time, they put the stamp on it right in the open. So you can't tell the story like it's one outburst in a calm season. You have to place it inside a year where frustration became a weekly theme. At 10-30, the Sky have been out of the playoff picture for long enough that morale is a moving target. Each blown coverage felt louder. Every flat quarter looked like a referendum. In that atmosphere, a pointed quote doesn't land on a neutral floor. Reese's growth has been the one clean positive all year. She rebounds like a magnet and puts pressure on the rim every night. With 14.7 points and a league-best 12.6 rebounds, she changed how opponents prepared, even when the Sky's record barely moved. That kind of rise naturally shifts the offense toward her, and anytime a young star becomes the hub, people notice who's getting touches and whose role shrinks. You saw flashes of that tension on camera. In that Dallas game, she argued through a timeout over attention she felt she wasn't getting from officials. Some teammates folded arms and stared ahead. Afterward, Tyler Marsh talked about better emotional composure without naming names, a coach's way of saying the group had to breathe when the whistle stung. A single clip doesn't define a locker room, but a season of clips can start to feel like a pattern. The bigger context includes decisions upstairs. Earlier in the year, the front office dealt former All-Star Kalia Copper to Phoenix, and the locker room read it the way most locker rooms do. The timeline just lengthened. Rebuilds are honest but unforgiving. When you're trying to develop and lose at the same time, every quote, every glare, every huddle has more weight than it would on a 25-win team. That's why the Aces game mattered more than the standings. It was a stage, a measuring stick, and a mirror for the Sky, all wrapped into one night. And they went into it without their best rebounder on the floor to start. Under the bright lights at Michelob Ultra Arena, Chicago met the two-time defending champs without Reese for the opening half. She sat because the team said so, on top of the league's automatic suspension. The Aces don't need help controlling the glass, but they got it anyway, and you could feel the gap from the first 5 minutes. Without Reese, second chances piled up. Long rebounds turned into open threes on the kickout. Las Vegas extended possessions with little resistance, and every extra trip became a reminder of what Chicago had sacrificed to make a point. Reporters flagged the rebounding differential in real time because it was obvious and immediate, the kind of stat that tells the story before anyone steps to a podium. Marsh defended the choice before tip and after the buzzer with the same phrase: organizational decision. He insisted the matter was resolved, which is coach speak for "we're moving on." Even if everyone knows the air doesn't clear in one night. It's the correct playbook answer, but it didn't change what people saw with their own eyes during those opening quarters. After halftime, the energy flipped. Reese returned and the glass tightened. Putbacks that looked easy in the first half turned into two hands and a forearm battles. Chicago pushed pace off clean boards and made the game feel less like a clinic. The minutes were limited, but the value wasn't. You could see exactly what they give up when she's not on the floor. The final score wasn't the headline. The optics were. A team out of playoff contention chose to enforce discipline in a way that weakened them on their highest profile stage of the month. For Las Vegas, it was just another night. For Chicago, it was a live demo of the cost of conflict. Across the court stood the player whose name always circles any conversation about Reese's ceiling, Aya Wilson. Reese has called Wilson a mentor since LSU, and it isn't casual. Their relationship includes off-season advice, workouts, and a model for how to be a franchise big in a league that punishes mistakes. When Reese sits during the first half while Wilson runs the floor, the symbolism is impossible to ignore. The ties run deeper than one superstar. Reese trained with Chelsea Gray last offseason, and Gray has praised her as one of the most coachable young players she's been around. Those are compliments that travel. When the architects of the Aces culture vouch for you, it shapes how the rest of the league thinks about your next 5 years. For Chicago, the mentorships are both a blessing and a pressure point. It's normal for young stars to find veterans outside their own locker room, but when those veterans wear the jersey of your fiercest rival, fans notice and executives take notes. It doesn't mean disloyalty. It does mean there's a clear, visible blueprint of success outside your building, and it sits across from you on the biggest stage. That's one reason the trade chatter didn't feel like fake noise. When Front Office Sports and others reported multiple teams calling to gauge interest, nobody rolled their eyes. Reese is on a rookie scale deal through 2026. She's productive, marketable, and still getting better. That's the definition of a player who draws picks and players back in return. Washington and Atlanta come up in conversations because the fits make sense on paper. Both need frontcourt engines, and both have the assets to talk. Chicago would be within their rights to ask for a haul, multiple firsts, and a veteran who can help right now, because contracts like Reese's create real flexibility for a contender. Young stars on affordable deals are rare in any cap structure. But this is where Chicago's internal math gets complicated. Stylistically, Reese goes best when she can run, short roll, and carve out deep position early. The Sky, under Marsh, have emphasized a slower, defense-first identity. That isn't wrong, but it can feel like a mismatch when your best offensive threat wants to attack early in the clock. You saw flashes of that tension in the way sets were called, and how often she had to create in traffic. The suspension brought all of that into focus. Some older voices around the team reportedly supported the disciplinary line, stressing standards and tone. Some younger players thought the half-game add-on went too far, especially with the aces on the schedule. That split mirrors the front office choice sitting on the table: bend the system around your best player, or bend the roster toward your chosen system. Reese herself has kept the feed tidy. A recent workout clip with the caption, "Control what you can," told you everything and nothing at the same time. She's training. She's not escalating the rhetoric. She understands that public emotion already cost her a half and a headline, and she's not trying to turn that into a month. No decision is made yet, but everyone knows when the phone lines heat up, right after the season ends. That's when honest conversations happen. That's when agents and execs float frameworks. And that's when you find out if an apology and a few team dinners wipe the slate, or if the damage stretched deeper than a quote and a punishment. So the Sky face a real fork. If they are building around Reese, they need to accelerate the timeline, retool the offense to give her earlier touches and cleaner space, and add guards who turn rebounds into runway. If they decide the relationship is too bruised, they need to maximize value now, not later, and set a new calendar for the rebuild. Either way, the season turned this moment into a verdict. A 10-30 record isn't just a number, it's a pressure cooker. It's what makes a young star's plain talk feel like a blast, and what makes a team's half-game benching feel like a statement. The culture question that Chicago posed in its memo is now the question staring them down. Who are they, and who do they want to be with Reese in the room? The truth is simple and sharp. This wasn't just discipline, it was a line in the sand. It told the player that words carry cost, and it told the room that leadership will spend wins to defend values. It also told the league that a market-shifting negotiation might be closer than anyone expected 2 months ago. That's why this suspension stands as a defining moment in Angel Reese's early career. It punctuates a season-long breakdown between a rising star and a franchise still choosing between present pain and future hope. It also sets up the off-season as a referendum on fit, timeline, and power. At 23, Reese is at the beginning, not the end. Whatever comes next will shape her legacy and ripple through the WNBA's balance of power. Should the Sky double down and build the next era around Angel Reese, or should they trade her while her value is sky high and reset the clock? Drop your take in the comments, and if you're riding with the receipts, like and subscribe because the off-season phones are about to light up.